Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast, where we explore personal development, spirituality, and science. I'm your host, Chris Ashley. I'm really excited for my guest today. He is a certified nutritionist, but he has changed the medical field. So I'm really excited to just learn a lot from him today. First, couple quick announcements. Head over to the links in the show notes. You're going to find a lot there. You'll find ways to connect with my amazing guests. You'll find ways to connect with me. You'll find links to my book. You'll find ways to sponsor the podcast. You'll find links to my other 2 television shows that are a little bit more on the metaphysical side. So if you're more into the woo-woo side, definitely check those out. And as always, this podcast is part of the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. We are doing massive things in personal development. We have live events every month, in person and virtual, with incredible headliners. So come be a part of what we're doing. It's really exciting. What if the one thing keeping you stuck is the way you think? Welcome to Change Your Mind with Chris Ashley, the podcast where science meets spirituality and mindset becomes your most powerful tool for transformation. I'm Chris Ashley, author of Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality, trainer, speaker, and lifelong seeker. For years, I battled trauma, depression, anger, chronic illness, low self-worth, and the weight of old stories. Until I discovered how to rewire my mind, reconnect with my divine nature, and consciously create a new reality from the inside out. This show is here to help you do the same. Each week, we explore the intersection of personal development, spirituality, and science, diving into topics like healing, emotional mastery, entrepreneurship, resilience, and the quantum nature of reality. You'll hear powerful stories, gain practical tools, and real conversations that will help you change your perspective, get unshakable confidence, and live the vision your soul has always known is possible. Whether you're navigating a major life shift, building your dream business, or seeking deep healing and alignment, you're in the right place. So if you're ready to break through, take back your power, and create a life on your terms, this is your moment. Let's break free from the patterns that hold us back, awaken to who we truly are, and rise. Your transformation starts now. All right, so with me today, I have Donnie Yance. Did I pronounce your last name right, Donnie? I didn't even ask.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Donnie is a clinical master herbalist and certified nutritionist, internationally renowned for his pioneering work in botanical and nutritional medicine, particularly in the field of integrative cancer. Long considered by his colleagues to be the authority in his field, Donnie has authored 2 definitive books on botanical and herbal medicine. Donnie is the creator of the Mederi Core model, a highly advanced, intuitive, unitive approach combining cutting-edge scientific research with ancient healing traditions, and the president and founder of the Mederi Center, a not-for-profit organization dedicated to personalized patient care, professional education, and clinical research in holistic medicine and integrative oncology. He's also the president and formulator of Natura Health Products, a line of advanced botanical and nutritional products for healthcare practitioners. So you've got a lot going on. You're very impressive. Welcome, Donnie. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Chris. Great to be with you. And I'm also a musician, first and foremost, I like to say. I have 2 albums out of all my own music. One's called Heaven Awaits. One is Cosmic Force. And I have a third called The Pilgrim. And I'm a bass player, so I've been playing music my whole life, a little bit more jazz influence, but I also take a lot of musical concepts and musical terminology and apply it to medicine. And I'm also a third order Franciscan. I spent 3 years in a Franciscan monastery, so I also blend in a lot of theological concepts. And then I always preface the Mederi model. We always hear terms like mind, body, spirit medicine. That's a common term. In Mederi, which is a unitive model, not an integrative model, but a unitive model, I always say spirit, mind, body.
Cool. Wow. That's really amazing. I'm not surprised that you're a musician too, because isn't music like the language of the universe. Like it's all connected. Like if you can understand music, you can understand math and science, really, right? It's like all.
I mean, just think of the heart. The heart is going like a beat. Everything in the universe is musical, and everything is vibration. And I often, not to side turn us in any way, but I often think if I was the creator of the divine energy of everything, and I just let humans just be and see what happens with this great experiment we call life, I would maybe say that creating some of the most beautiful works of music might be the most impressive thing that humans have done. And because I think music sits somewhere in that the ethers of between heaven and earth. It's not just about what we are as earthly human beings, but there's something more elevating than that, and maybe the arts in general. But music is even a little bit different, because music is something you most often do together with other people. Music is often, if it's improvisational, it is spontaneous. And if it's not recorded, it's just, where does it go?
I like that. And it made me think of a lot of people who have had NDEs have reported hearing music,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like almost like choirs singing and like the most beautiful music they've ever heard. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself. So for sure.
Did you have an NDE?
Mm-hmm.
You did. Tell me about your NDE.
Probably was maybe, I'm going to say, I don't know if it's 10 years now, maybe 11 years, something like that. And it happened on Good Friday. And that's when it started. And I don't know, I've never been ill a day in my life. I've never been ill since. I've never missed a day of work. And something happened, and I was bedridden. And I still, to this day, don't completely understand it, but I was in tremendous pain, couldn't sleep and couldn't eat. And I eventually left my body. And in doing so, I saw a great many things. I actually went into this other dimension through the eye of an elephant. Wow. And I experienced what it would be like to both experience the utmost suffering, but the utmost love at the same time. And I learned a lot of things in that time, things that I think I went on to write about, things like that I thought at that time, 10 or 11 years ago, we never even heard the term AI quite yet, but there was technology. And so I started to think that technology, or what we might say AI, is really the Antichrist. I started to think that bread was the most important food for people to eat, and everyone is always degrading grains and bread, and it's such a humble and beautiful food, and every culture has embraced it, and every religion has embraced it, and many other things. I worked really hard, and I came to, at that time, think that I need to go a little bit back more to my monastic state of being, which I did, and I've kind of manifested myself full circle because, and then you mentioned, before we were recording, you mentioned one of your friends that is now an aromatherapist. And one of the things I was called to do was help people more in transition, because we have terrible terms like end of life we use. And to me, it's like, why can't we embrace what we don't know and call it a mystery? Why do we have to say the end of life? I'm not saying nobody knows what really happens, but we don't have to assume that that's an end. So I don't really like terminology like that. And I feel like we're doing a great disservice to people when they're in transition, and we're not experiencing that with them. And so one of the things that came out of that time was I developed an oil of anointment that's most intended to help people in transition, with some very ancient essential oils that have been used for thousands of years. Sacred frankincense from Somalia, the frankincense that all of the incense in the Catholic and Orthodox churches are made from. myrrh is in there, spikenard is in there, nutmeg, rose, lavender. So I concocted this St. John's wort oil. And so I use that for healing. I have prayers that I wrote that go with it. And you had mentioned that you also do a metaphysical podcast. And, I see everything in paradoxes. And so physical and metaphysical need to be working in harmony. They shouldn't be separate from each other. Just like in Chinese medicine, there's yin, there's yang, there's wisdom, there's knowledge, there's inward, there's outward, there's daytime, there's nighttime, there's the being self, there's the doing self, there's the subjective self, and there's the objective self. And we need to create harmony with all of those and then see things in a unified one. So that's concepts of life, but it's also concepts of medicine. And the paradox, so if you were to look at health through the lens of a spiritual lens, it has nothing to do with yourself. Health is about doing for others. I lived in a Franciscan monastery. I'm an Eastern Rite Third Order Franciscan. My idols are all martyrs and saints. They didn't care about their own personal health. They did for others. And so, but when we think of health in the world we live in, we think of all this self-care. Which is really a selfish thing. And so the word wellness starts with the letters W-E, we. The word illness starts with the letter I. And when we look at what's the greatest illnesses of our time, isolation, loneliness, depression, anxiety, anger, pessimism, these are the things that are really killing people. There's other things too contributing, but those are the main diseases of our time. And so we have to see life as a paradox. Yes, I have my autonomy. I have me. I need to take care of myself, but to the extent that it serves the whole. So we don't want to we don't want to, everything's finding that balance and that harmony. Like we don't want to be too masculine, too rigid. We don't want to be too feminine. We want to see how we can see all of these things and figure out where we're off a little bit and how do we bring ourselves back into that harmony. And life is a pilgrimage. It's not like you're ever going to get there. You strive for perfection, but you're never going to be perfect. So it's another interesting concept that you've got to let go of perfection, but you still want to be striving for it at the same time.
Yeah. Wow. You said a lot. You said a lot there. So one of the last things you were talking about were the main diseases of our time, like isolation and loneliness. Do you think those are the root causes of illness? Like, are those why we get cancer, why we get sick?
I would say yes. They are at the root of our diseases of our time. And I think cancer isn't a single disease, and people are unique. And so we put these labels, and things are complex. Cancer is different in every way, from not just the type of cancer. We label cancers based on where cancer is found. So I have breast cancer because it was found in my breast, but I have pancreatic cancer because it's found in my pancreas first. And there's certain characteristics that identify them to that organ as a source of origin. But in actuality, that really doesn't tell us all that much about the cancer. So there's all of these characteristics that are independent of the organ. There's cellular characteristics, there's molecular characteristics. And then cancer is mutating, and cancer is changing itself, and eventually becomes multiple subsets of the original cancer, to some degree on its own evolution, but often based upon the therapies, the conventional therapies that are given to people to treat cancer, which are often very good at chopping off the branches of the tree, but not very good at getting at the root system, which we brought up. And everything about what I do is to concentrate on the root system, and first and foremost by nourishing things. We have to nourish our three energetic makeups of our life force, which in Chinese medicine, the three treasures. One is our earthly nourishment, which is how we eat, and two is our celestial nourishment, which is how we breathe. And 3 is our heavenly nourishment, which always is about giving and receiving love, feeling a sense of belonging, feeling a sense of purpose. We as human beings have to have that as part of the totality of what it means to be human, not just in the spiritual realm. So it's no longer about, oh, this is what I think spiritually, this is what I think here. You have to begin to see the whole. And we are tearing what it means to be human apart. So if someone has depression or someone has any kind of quote unquote psychological disorders, they need to go to a specialist. If they have this disorder, if they have a gut disorder, they're going to a gastrointestinal specialist. Well, we know the gut's an enteric brain, and there's conversations that are going on between our gut and our brain. Nobody's seeing that relationship and figuring out how do we, again, bring harmony and build robustness in our bodies. So the best kind of medicine, root system medicine, only is doing 2 things: making us more robust and making us more efficient, and getting ourselves to auto-regulate better. And seeing it from all these perspectives. And like for me, it's like you can't, if someone has cancer and they're not sleeping well or they have depression, I can't ignore that. I can't say I'm here to, work on your cancer and not work on that. And yet that's the way our medicine model is set up right now. I don't care about anything other than your cancer, Dr. 1, Dr. 2. I'm a cardiologist. I'm just going to look at a couple of parameters that have to do with your heart. I'm a neurologist. I'm going to look at some things there. I'm a urologist. I'm, a psychologist. And then you go on to things like, oh, you're beyond that. You need to go see your priest, rabbi, or your spiritual leader. And yet nobody is holding the person as a whole.
Right.
And so the paradigm that I've created, Mederi Care, is based on hermeneutics, which is seeing the whole and seeing the parts, seeing how the parts relate to the whole, how the whole relates to the parts. And so we use telescopes, we use microscopes. And again, we're focusing on root system medicine, nourishing medicine to build upon, and then we build a puzzle together and do other things that are more topical, but we always look to see what are we doing at that very rudimental level and what we're standing on. We're building, you see a tree that a storm comes and one tree may look the same as the other, one falls down, the other doesn't, because they had a stronger root system. So I tell all of my patients that that's the most important thing. I don't care what disease you have. We need to optimize your health from all of those perspectives: your spiritual health, your physical health, your emotional health, all of these things, and look at everything and start to figure out how we can put pieces together on all fronts to get you as healthy as possible. Because the healthier you are, the better off you're going to be no matter what. Then we'll analyze your microenvironment. Then we'll analyze your disease. So analyzing the disease comes third. We don't ignore that because, again, we want to look at things from every vantage point. We do want to know about your cancer. We do want to know what characteristics it has. We want to know about it molecularly, cellularly. We want to know about your health at that organ system level, at that cellular level, but we always are serving back to the whole, and we're building a model upon wisdom first and foremost, which is ancient and traditional and connected to phronesis, which is practical wisdom that is coming from the heart center. Coming from the right side brain to the heart center is the intuitive mind, and that the rational mind, which is knowledge and science, which is more ego-driven, has to serve the divine connection to wisdom. And wisdom is, the owl represents wisdom. The feminine represents wisdom. So in actuality, knowledge is ego, more masculine based. And so that should be serving the wisdom based. And then you bring in common sense logic, you bring in prayer and love, because medicine today is based on fear. You have patients doing things. People live life out of fear, out of worrying. What if I don't do what this says? Doctors do what they're doing mostly because they're following very strict and narrow guidelines that tell them exactly what to do in every situation, and they can't really deviate from that. So And if they do think something might be better, but it's a deviation from the standard of care, now they're fearful of what that might mean for them. Because we have, all kinds. We have, what are my peers going to think? What is the institution that I work under going to think? What is, what if something goes wrong? I can get sued because I didn't follow the guidelines. And so we've set up a model that's all based in fear, when, again, in what I do, love is the greatest healer. You have to set up a model, and then you use your various toolboxes. Botanical herbal medicine is the heart of what I do. I love plants as medicine. I've been doing it for over 40 years, and I love them more and more every day. Then you have nutritional medicine, supplemental nutritional medicine. Then you have food as medicine. Then you have lifestyle as medicine. Then you have all of the modern medicine that we have, which is a great toolbox used appropriately. And then we have spiritual care as medicine. And so those are the 6 toolboxes that and the spiritual toolbox is something that's interwoven in all of the toolboxes.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I couldn't agree more. The one thing I don't know as much about is what you're a total specialist in, and that's plants and botanicals and herbs as medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to just talk about that a little bit, and maybe we just pull it back and make it a little more broad for anyone listening to relate to. Like, if someone just wants to kind of make their immune system more robust and kind of get their root system really strong, what kind of plants and herbs should they look at? Or do you only use them when someone's ill?
Absolutely not. No,
Okay.
No, I don't have any illness. I bathe myself with plants to the utmost. And
Okay.
I attest to my great health because of that. So no, there are many tonic herbs and adaptogenic herbs and herbs that nourish our essence, which is our hormonal energy, herbs that nourish our nervous system, herbs that just are helping preserve our health, herbs that are acting in an anabolic way, because in aging and in disease, everything is an anabolic catabolic relationship. In other words, we're breaking down and then we're trying to rebuild back up. Break down, build up. Everything is that. And so as people get older, your body in every way breaks down a little bit more in relationship to how it builds up. So there are many botanicals that accentuate the building up, the anabolic processes of the body. Botanicals can also help mitigate the effects of stress. And so I've written a lot. I just finished a new book that's basically The Healing Pharmacy, but pharmacy with an F. And it's a big book on food as medicine, a little bit more applicable to cancer and prostate cancer, but really my Bible on how to eat. I wrote a big book a few years back, Adaptogens and Medical Herbalism, which elite herbs and natural compounds for mastering stress and aging and chronic disease. And so that book is a great book for people to understand what plants and how to implement those plants into their life to optimize their health, because that's what I'm about, health optimization. I developed a whole product line called Natura Health Products. The foundational formulas are all appropriate for anyone and everyone. Then there's a bunch of acute formulas for things like colds and flus and sore throats. But adaptogens, everyone to me should be taking adaptogens. They were coined by the Russians in the early 1960s after studying all of these plants that had criteria, mostly what's called the 3 Ns. They were non-specific, normalizing, and non-toxic. And that, for me, I added what's called the 4 Rs. They enhance response so that when we're in any situation of increased stress, which everyone is, we have to respond to that stress. We don't function. So you brought up functional medicine, I think, before. I never liked that word functional, because I always see functional as relating to machines, and because humans are responsive, they're living entities, and everything is in flux and everything's communicating. So these plants are going to enhance our response capacity so that we respond to our environment in a healthier way, and that we recover better from those situations, that they cost us less in the dynamic range of healthy stability, and that we adapt better, that energy transfers better, and that we're protected more so. So how do we make energy more efficient? We all want energy. So how do we make energy? Well, we have various endocrine components, and we have how we take food and make energy, and how we take air and make energy. So how do we make oxygen more efficient? How do we make carbohydrates for energy more efficient? How do we make fats more efficient? Adaptogens are plants that aid in all of that, and they help us adapt to stress and help us recover. We're not healthier by running away from stress. That doesn't make us healthy. We want to limit the amount of stress we're under to allow ourselves to adapt. If we push too far, we don't adapt, we break down somewhere, and we get disease, and we have shortened lifespan. If we get no stress, our bodies are never exercised in any way, and then when there is a moment of stress, we can't respond properly or recover properly, and then we're done. So we want just the right amount, and there's a concept called hormesis that's very important to health, and that is that too much and too little of the same thing have equal consequences, negative consequences. And we have the hardest time understanding that. As Ben Franklin says, a place for everything, everything in its place. It's the greatest quote on how to understand health. There isn't anything bad necessarily. It's always knowing its proper place in the balance of things. We know that how we have a great gut health is, and how important that is to our health and to our immune system. So nourishing our gut. You mentioned immune system. Reggiano Parmigiano cheese is one of the best immune system foods in the world.
Really?
They've shown that it boosts your T cells. It makes your whole immune system more robust by the fermentation of that cheese that takes 18 months, by the changes that occur that in the organisms that grow in there, that they nourish our gut and they create great diversity.
Had no idea. Very cool.
Yeah, I wrote a whole blog. So my blog and website is just my name, DonnieYance.com, and it's my DonnieYance. So my blog is my one outreach, to the world. And so I'm always writing on foods, on spirituality, on herbs, and every week I post a blog. And what I write is different than what anybody else writes in the world. So you're always going to get something very unique and very diverse and I did 55 blogs on COVID-19, mostly helping people to know all of the things in nature that can help them. And that's my main message. Herbal medicine is so effective when it comes to things like that. And then dealing with overt nutritional deficiencies, whether it be zinc. Zinc is the most efficient nutrient, and you cannot have a healthy immune system without adequate zinc. It's impossible. Zinc is involved in every branch of the immune system, and most people are subnormal, and the elderly are critically in the critical zone when it comes to zinc and vitamin D and other essential nutrients to all of the enzymatic pathways of the body and to the immune system. And so you've got to normalize those things. You've got to get people outside and get them in the sun, and you got to bathe them with herbal medicine. And then you can see really how healthy people are. Get their diet right, bring herbal medicine in, deal with nutritional deficiencies, help people develop a zeal for life in a healthy way, and be positive. It's really important. Like, I have a simple motto: live your life only to bring love and goodness to the world. You don't really have to worry about anything else. It doesn't matter. Just focus on your own authentic way to bring as much love and goodness to the world, and don't worry about anything else.
That's really beautiful. And you're right. It's like what it's all about. Mm-hmm. So, just thinking about like right now, like it's November, mid-November, we're going into cold, flu, RSV season. You kept talking about adaptogens. I don't even know what some examples of adaptogens are. So like, what are a couple plants that people could take right now to just kind of like boost everything, just going into the
I'll
season?
name some of the top adaptogens, but then I'll tell you how I use plants and how I use adaptogens.
Okay, cool.
In my product line, Natura Health Products, people can see the adaptogenic formulations that I've created, because the ancient systems of medicine didn't use single herbs. And we have this reductionistic concept. Everything, just like you have the most beautiful way to eat is diversity. Having a beautiful meal with lots of different foods. It's not about eating one food. The same is true with herbal medicine. But the top adaptogens are Eleutherococcus senecosus, which is referred to some as Siberian ginseng. And that's the most researched of all the adaptogens, and by the Russians in particular. You have Panax ginseng, so you have Panax white ginseng primarily. Red ginseng is reserved for very debilitated people, anemic people, very, very weak people. White ginseng is more serviceable to the masses. And then you have American ginseng, which is the Panax quinquefolius. You have Rhodiola rosacea, which is another great adaptogen, but never should be taken as a single herb. In Ayurvedic medicine, you have ashwagandha as a wonderful adaptogen. And so these are some of what we call the primary. The other very popular herb that I personally love a lot is called Schisandra, the 5-spice herb. So those are examples of some adaptogens. Then we have adaptogens with extra anabolic capabilities. My favorite is called Rapuncticum carthamoides. So that really makes you strong. So it's called marrow root as well. And it's rich in these compounds called ectosterones. So I have formulas, one called Vital Adapt, one called Power Adapt. So Vital Adapt is a little bit more full-bodied. You know, it has not just those primary adaptogens, but now it has complementary herbs in there that aren't going to do what those primary adaptogens are, but they lend themselves beautifully in a harmonious way to those. Those are things that are often culinary herbs that people use on a daily basis. You know, in some cultures, ginger, turmeric, cumin, rosemary, basil. We use the holy basil. These are plants that, green tea, these are plants that are not working like a primary adaptogen is, but they have so many health contributing benefits. They have little to no toxicity, and they have been embraced by cultures. Ginger is been used in many ancient systems of medicine. It dates way back, but never just ginger. It's always in a formulation. So that's kind of the concept. Just like putting an incredible musical band together, an orchestra, writing a piece of music, we have all the parts, and the parts come together, and the coming together of all those instruments and the parts make this beautiful sound, not any one thing. So the way I compound and the way that I think in terms of providing herbal formulas for the masses is get the best, highest quality of ingredients, extract them in the best way possible, and then combine them in a sensible way. You know, kind of like a gourmet chef would do. You know, it's kind of that kind of concept. So
very cool.
That's a little overview on some of them. And adaptogens need to have historical relativity. So we need to know that, hey, ashwagandha has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for, again, thousands of years. Oh, by the way, we have incredible modern scientific validation of the health benefits. And in my adaptogen book, the whole back of the book, third of the book, which is 700 pages, thousands of citations, are all monographs on all of the plants and some nutrients as well. There's like over 60 monographs. So you can get an in-depth to see all of the incredible scientific research there is. So you have this ancient wisdom component validating, hey, people have been using these plants for all these reasons for promoting health. And oh, by the way, now it's validated, not just from in vitro data, not from animal studies, but extensive human clinical studies have been done on these plants, validating for in all different areas of health. I mean, adaptogens were given to factories like one factory got us 5 mils of eleutherococcus every day extract through a course of the winter with the flu coming. The other factory got a placebo. The factory that got the eleuthero had significant lower incidence of flu throughout the season. Pilots would take it and they did better in their night flying, recovered. Cool. People, cosmonauts in Russia, I mean, everything. The athletes would take it, finding that the athletes have very poor immune systems, actually. You think athletes are healthy. Look at how healthy they are. Well, they're healthy to do what they're told to do, what they've trained their body. They're actually unhealthy in every other way.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it makes sense. A lot of stress, too, I would imagine.
The athlete is telling the body, I want to be exceptionally good at this one thing. And it jeopardizes everything else. It doesn't care because you're telling it, this is what I want you to be great at. So athletes actually have generally speaking, have very poor immune systems. But when they take adaptogens, it mitigates that for them. And it helps them recover. I actually work with the Eagles who won the Super Bowl and work with some of the supplements that the Eagles players take as well. So everything is about recovery. When you do a sport, your body's breaking down. It's not getting strong. You do the sport, the body's getting stressed, and it says, oh my gosh, I better make my muscles bigger. And so when it's recovering, it adapts again, and if you push it too hard, you get injured. If you don't push it at all, it doesn't get strong. So there's this constant, again, anabolic, catabolic. You got to sleep to get your muscles strong. There's certain, and these plants, adaptogens, help everything work a little bit better. And it's hard for us to think that way because we want everything in this heroic way. If I take this is what's going to happen. But we're losing that metaphysical aspect of everything. We have to understand that in nature, we can understand to a certain degree, and then we have to be able to let go and say, I understand this, and this,
Love it.
But this I can't understand.
Yeah, it's just trusting. I appreciate that. So I want to go back to something you were talking about a while ago. You were talking about food, and you said bread is one of the most important foods. And part of me is like, I understand that. Like, you look at the Bible, like everyone's eating bread, and back in the day, it was so nutrient dense. But I feel like so much of our bread today has lost that. Like, when I eat bread in the States, I break out in like eczema rashes, but I can eat it in Europe because of like the different wheat, I guess. But yeah, I'd love for you to just like talk about that a minute, because that just kind of blew my mind when you said that.
Yeah, so you have to think in terms of anything practically. It's not just bread. Anything in the commercial world we live in is pretty much destroyed in garbage, and that includes grains and bread. So, but you're absolutely right. You can make bread from heirloom grains that are not GMO, that are organic or even wild. You can grind them into a flour fresh, which I do. I have my own grinder.
Nice.
So you bring the particle size of that grain right down to a powder. So you're making the molecules very tiny, very easy for your gut to digest. Then you're fermenting it, hopefully with an ancient, an old sourdough starter, which takes days to actually make really good bread with that. Yeah. And it's fermenting. They're living together. So real bread is a living food. It's alive. It's got, cultures in it, and you're kneading it with your hands. And so it's not a food you can pull from the ground and just eat. We have to actually work it to make it what it is. And so you mentioned, yes, the Bible. First of all, the Jews lived on manna, and then Jesus called himself the bread of life. And so yes, bread is there. And when you sit at the table, what do? We break bread. And you can go, every culture has learned. And when you're sick, what do you want? Soup and bread. And it's like, but yes, we've adulterated that. We've poisoned what could be a great food and destroyed it. Bleach the flour. We take all the nutrients out of the grain, which are loaded with incredible nutrients. I mean, whole grains, even wheat. Wheat is the richest source of an anti-aging compound called spermidine. There's no food close to wheat in that compound. It's rich into copperols, gamma-arosanols, ferulic acid, tocotrienols. I mean, the list is endless of how much nutrition there is in wheat. but we've stripped it of all the nutrition. We grow our grains, GMO now, and we bleach it, and then we add synthetic nutrients back in to top it off that we can't even utilize for our body. There's synthetic isolates, and so we're
like
doing
folic acid. It's so bad.
Yeah, they have to throw that back in because they take it out when they take the good stuff out. So we're destroying the food. We can't blame the food. And again, if you're an environmentalist, there's no better food to be eating than grains on the environment. Potatoes and grains are the best food to eat because they have the least impact on our environment. And the blue zones, that's what the blue zones eat. The healthiest people in the world. I mean, Okinawa, half their diet is potatoes. Half the diet.
I didn't know that. I knew they ate a lot of fish. So I didn't know it was potatoes too.
Yep, half the diet's potatoes. And
so where do you get your grains to grind?
The other 25% is squash. They have the kombucha squash.
Oh, yeah.
The Okinawa sweet potato, the Japanese sweet potato. Makes up like 60% of their diet of those two foods. And so it's and they're incredibly healthy for you. And they're humble foods. And so, we don't need everything to be, something like amazingly expensive. I mean, a potato is the only food that can sustain human life. You probably didn't know that, right?
No, I didn't.
You live on a potato. You can't live on any other food.
What about eggs? You can't live on eggs?
No way. Eggs are the eggs are the most complete protein.
Okay.
But they're still deficient, and there's no vitamin C in eggs.
Got it. But there is in potatoes.
Yeah, but eggs have a lot of interesting nutrients. Eggs, of course, have sulfur, iron, carotenoids, sphingolipids, phospholipids, a host of B vitamins. So, eggs are good food, but they're not like a potato. There's no fiber in eggs. There's no any like I said, any vitamin C, and there's no phenolic compounds in eggs. And grains are really rich. Black rice and purple potatoes are way higher than in anthocyanins than berries are. People say, "Oh, I'm eating these exotic berries, these incredible berries from some mountain." I said, purple potatoes have way more absorbable anthocyanins, and that's what makes them purple. And the outside of an eggplant, which is a humble food too, is that purple color. Really, it's all anthocyanins. Really, really good stuff for you.
I had no idea. Where do you get your grains to grind? You must order them like out of the country, right?
No. We have I live in Ashland, Oregon, so we have an incredible co-op. We even have a farm that has been a 100-year-old farm that's been growing heirloom grains on it, organic, for over 100 years on this one farm.
That's amazing.
We buy some local, beautiful local wheat. Yeah, so for sure. You can get kamut. Kamut's an ancient grain. Spelt's an incredible ancient grain too. There's farro is another one. Rye, there's beautiful. Oats are really amazing too, so there's nothing wrong, but everything, go back to a place for everything in its place. I'm not saying you live on grains, but a healthy plate of meal should have a diversity of food. It shouldn't just be one thing. You don't have to not eat this or not eat that. You need everything in its right place and its right balance.
Yeah. Because we make our own sourdough, which helps me digest it a lot, but it still bothers me a little. So I'm gonna try grinding my own.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Try different grains. Try grinding some different grains, and I'm sure one will work really, really well with you. And then you can mix grains together too. You can make experiment a little bit.
Yeah.
And then if you do still react, then what you do is practice hormesis. Give yourself just a little bit. Don't give yourself too much. And then once you've had that little bit and say, hey, I'm doing pretty good on this amount, I'm going to put just a tiny bit more next time. And that's how your body adapts. You don't adapt. You won't adapt to anything by staying away from it. You give yourself the tiniest amount and say, oh, I'm still reacting. Even the tiniest amount. Cut it in half. Go down to homeopathic dosages. No matter who it is, you can get to a place where the minutest amount of that substance someone can take, and then little by little their body adapts. You can get rid of a peanut allergy that way.
I was going to say, you're making me think of allergies, like when you introduce them to kids like that. Yeah, very cool. So another thing you touched on that I agree with so much is we're living out of fear so much today when it comes to our health. It made me think of, it's a hot topic now, but vaccines and, I'm pregnant right now. I have a toddler, and that's like very much on my mind. Yeah, I guess like just advice for like getting out of that fear state and what can people do in this environment that is so fear-based, like especially medicine.
First, don't trust the powers to be and what they tell you.
Yeah, don't at all.
They're wrong most of the time.
Yeah.
And I can go all the way back, just give you example. The only time I've ever had a doctor do anything to my body, here I am 66 and a half, was when I was 5 years old. They took my tonsils out. So my mom, I said, well, why did you have my tonsils out? She goes, oh, back then they said you didn't need your tonsils. We're just going to take them out so they don't get infected. So and a few years later, a decade later, all of a sudden they stopped taking the tonsils out. They found out, hey, tonsils are a part of your immune system. You shouldn't take them out, And so that's just one little example. When I was born in 1959, my mother didn't nurse me. So I asked my mom, why didn't you nurse? Oh, the doctor said we don't need to nurse anymore. We have formula. It's better. Who would ever think that you don't have to bother doing that? Who would ever think that formula is better? Oh, by the way, we learned in the 60s that cholesterol is a great contributor to heart disease. Let's now eat no cholesterol, and now nobody's allowed to eat eggs anymore without a single stitch of evidence. No science whatsoever showed that eggs cause heart disease. Yeah. Every doctor was telling everybody not to eat butter, to use, replacements like margarine, which is 100 times worse for you than butter, and egg replacers and all this artificial food. Then fat was the villain. Everything in the store was non-fat. You don't even take one iota of fat. And it's like crazy how wrong, like the information. So when it comes to vaccines, there's a lot of wrong information. And you have to be very careful. So you look to risk to benefit. My kids have not been vaccinated. I have 3 kids. So I've chosen not to do that because I know how to treat things, for one, with herbs, and my kids are very healthy. And I wouldn't, like even something like chickenpox. Chickenpox isn't life-threatening. I mean, maybe to somebody very, very weak, but in general, it's not life-threatening. So we asked the powers to be, why are you making everyone get a vaccine for chickenpox? We all grew up with chickenpox. We all got it and got over it. Well, mothers work now when we don't want them to have to stay home with their kids. And I said, well, why even be a parent then? I mean, I did not have a very nurturing mother, but my greatest childhood memories was remembering when I was sick a couple times and I stayed home from school, and my mom actually, gave me a little more TLC than she normally did. And I just remember those moments, taking care of me when I was sick. So I said, we're just, but I'm, maybe if I wasn't a good herbalist, I have so much experience working with herbs and getting people well. I have so much faith in what I do that for me, that I'm not worried if my children get something, because I want them to build their own immunity. Because when you take a vaccine, and again, there's risk on certain things. If something was life-threatening in our area that I think that, oh my gosh, I'm not sure I know how to treat this, and I believe the vaccine to be somewhat safe, I would definitely do it. I'm not an anti-vaccine, but there's a cost to everything. You're tricking the body when you do a vaccine. You're bypassing the way the immune system works. And so when a kid is said they need 72 vaccines before the age of 3, they're never going to get trained in their immune system. And now they're going to be weaker to lots of other things that they're not vaccinated against, because we have to train our immune system like anything else. So you have different branches of the immune system. You have cell-mediated immune response, you have an adaptive response, and you have a humoral response. Cell-mediated is when you get sick and get these infections, you get a fever. The flu, you get achy. That's the production of interferons and interleukins. It's very chaotic. The immune system says, oh my gosh, something's wrong. Alarms go off, and it's very inflammatory, very hot. But the body then figures out how to get to the adaptive immune system. And that's where it buffers some of that heat And now it's building other aspects to go and both eradicate the pathogen directly through certain cells like T cells and natural killer cells, and at the same time knocks on the door of that humoral immune system and says, hey guys, wake up. Can you help me out here and make me a memory B cell that then can extinguish this specific pathogen? And so there's this whole orchestrated way the immune system works. When you do a vaccine, you're basically you're tricking the immune system. Say, no, you don't need to have all that cell-mediated immune system. You don't need the adaptive immune system. We're just going to make humoral antibodies, basically. That's what we want to do, just get antibodies. And so even when you choose to do a vaccine, the whole constitution, the energetic constitution, immunologically has gotten weaker from doing it. So you have to, again, look in your own way, is the risk greater than the reward? Is this life-threatening? And those are just things to think about. And do we have other ways to deal with these things? Are our children well-nourished? Are they deficient in things? Because that's when, things are worse for people. Do we have any tools? We know if they get this, I know what to do. Like I have formulas, I have Flu Away, I have throat and gland spray, lung and bronchial, S-Clear. I know how to do mustard poultices, baths with mustard seed in them, and essential oils. I have an aromatic rub that's kind of like a natural Vicks rub, and all of those old ways. Hot and sour soup I give. I have teas that I give. So you have to know these things and to help the immune system. If you don't, then maybe having a vaccine is the right thing to do. I don't ever want to tell anyone what to do. But like I said, I did 55 blogs on COVID. Everything is incredibly referenced. And I think that people weren't being told the good news of lots of natural medicine that can really help them. Even just getting outdoors. We were told to stay inside. Sunlight and fresh air is the best thing for you. Stagnant indoor air is the worst thing for you. It's like, it's like common sense, tells you that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you were saying like maybe if you don't know how to do all these things, but like thank God for people like you that do know how to do those things and make these formulas and sell them. So people who don't know what to do can still access that information. And
there's a lot of bias around herbal medicine in particular. I mean, they're so afraid. Conventional medicine is so afraid, and they make huge assumptions about we don't know enough about this, we don't know that. It's just a bunch of hogwash, the stuff they say. Or what about herb drug interaction? That's also mostly hogwash as well. And at the same time, patients are taking numerous drugs that are known to be interactive, and they're not even paying attention to it. They're not even paying attention, but they make assessments based on theoretical, garbage, really. You say, oh, this drug's metabolized through the 3A4 pathway of the liver, and then, oh, this herb has a constituent in vitro shown to upregulate that pathway. Therefore, there's an interaction. And that's not truthful at all. They haven't studied it in what's called through phytodynamic research. They haven't studied pharmacokinetics either. So it's just people are just being told things, and it's not accurate. And so,
well, I think it boils down to money, right? Like they are making a lot of money off their pills, and they can't make a lot of money off of herbs.
Money is the way to go. The money train, everything. Yeah. Vaccines are incredibly profitable. They cost nothing to make, and they are enormously profitable. And anything. I mean, I think a lot of drugs, like again, I work in oncology, so I see. I have such a hard time, particularly working with older people, given very strong medicine for their cancer at dosages that are that they can't tolerate. It's way too toxic for them. But the doctors, even when the drug is a good drug, and research has shown that it's highly effective at a much lower dosage. They don't want to change the dosage because there's much less money. You go to half dosage on a drug, now half the amount of money is being made on that drug. And then they don't like to validate the lower potency. So I'm in general kind of a fan of sort of metronomic drug therapies, which is, you give people do everything else right. You get their diet right, you get their herbs right, you get their nutrition right, you get their lifestyle right. Now, when you enter in the heroic medicine, or the glamorous medicine, different appropriate drug therapies, they don't have to carry the whole load, but they do have to do something. So I have patients say, "Oh, I don't want to take anything conventional." I said, that's not in the best interest of you, which my only concern is how to help you live better and longer. That's not in your best interest. There's value in you doing this, but maybe in a little different way. And
I appreciate that's your outlook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people could be like, well, no, my way is the only way. But I like that you're like, no, like, let me help you get everything set up so you don't need this heavy load. And then maybe it can help you.
Yeah. That's why I have that triage of the host factors, how to make a person, like I tell all my patients, wherever your health's at, I'm going to turn you into a Superman or Superwoman. I said, in spite of the fact you have cancer, you are going to be the strongest, healthiest specimen you could ever be. 2, we're going to do all of this laboratory tests and just see through that lens if your numbers are in a place that optimize your health, or are they in a place that's conducive to your disease, or in the case of cancer hijacks that microenvironment and takes control over it. And then we're gonna change all of those parameters, whether it be things of the rheology, where blood coagulation pathways are upregulated, or inflammatory aspects or nutritional components. Cancer hijacks nutrients. It does all kinds of incredible stuff, that would blow your mind. And then finally, we're going to do very in-depth molecular profiling on your cancer. We're going to learn what growth factors are active, what proliferative factors are active, what epigenetic abnormalities there might be, what germline mutations and somatic mutations might be, driver mutations. And so we're going to uncover all of this, and we're going to start putting pieces together like a puzzle. And that's kind of the way I think. And when the puzzle comes together, that's when the miracle happens. It doesn't happen with any one thing. And I can't tell you what if I'm getting someone well, what's doing it. I always tell people it's the system, it's the approach.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way of looking. I mean, it's like you're looking at the whole body, like you said before, but rather than just being like, oh, cancer, here's a prescription. It's like, hey, let's do some lab work, figure out the best herbs and botanicals for you, get everything else set. Yeah, no, I love it.
And it's a partnership. I mean, again, the best medicine is making you the healthiest you can be, supporting your body, not doing it for you. Like saying, I am capable of healing. I am capable of healing if I nourish my body properly. And so that's what I'm interested in, because that's what's going to end in the end, final analysis. That's often the thing that helps people live the best and lives the longest. Not getting rid of a tumor necessarily. It's easy to get rid of tumors, cut them out, radiate them, do chemo, but that doesn't necessarily mean the patient's going to live longer or better.
Yeah, totally. Amazing. You're incredible. You're like such a wealth of knowledge. An hour has flown by. I want to respect your time, but I feel like I could talk to you forever, and just keep learning more.
We can do another show.
What's that?
We can do another show sometime.
Yeah. I'll have to have you back on for sure. Cause I have like a whole list of things I was like jotting down while you were talking that I wanted to ask about, but, for now, do you want to just kind of recap where people can find you, your books, or anything you want to share? And I'll put it in the show notes as well, too.
Yeah. So my website and my blog, which is going through a transformation, but it's still going to be DonnieYance.com, DonnieYance. The clinic, which also has an academy. I didn't mention I have a school to teach the model. It's about 1/3 built. It's an online school called the Mederi Academy. The clinic where we have practitioners that practice is the Mederi Center in Ashland, Oregon, and we work through over the internet with people, and we do telemedicine with people. And then we have a research wing as well. We have a breast cancer retrospective study that's been published. We've worked with many big universities around the country to try to launch a good human clinical trial. We have not been able to get one of these entities to fully embrace it. We've got very, very close with Ohio State University. And so we're going to work with 80 dogs with cancer possibly to do a trial. And then I have a product line called Natura Health Products, which is all my formulations, botanical nutritional formulations, all based on my wisdom, my knowledge, and my in-depth research into the best of the best. And then I'm a musician, so I have on Spotify or iTunes, whatever you listen to, 2 albums out. One's Heaven Awaits, the other is called Cosmic Force. And that's it. And I mentioned that to you, but not to your audience, that I did a retreat in June on the paradox of health, looking at spiritual health as doing for the other and looking at our health at doing for ourselves, and how do we balance and live in that paradox. And I am going to do another retreat but rather than in Florence, Italy, I'm going to do it in Tropea. And Tropea is in Calabria. And for me, it's the most beautiful place I've ever been to. It's on the Tyrrhenian Sea, and over, it's a little village in the southern part of Italy. And so I'm going to do it in September, I think 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st. And so, so that's it.
Amazing. I love that you have a research part too, and that you can't get anyone to back you out. Humans. You're going to do dogs for now.
I have the largest library in the world on data, on cancer, on any herb. I write monographs on every single plant that I work with. I write papers on everything. Like, you just name it, and I've written a paper on it. And like when you go see my blogs, you'll just see endless amounts of information. I write a simple 2-page, 3-page blog. It can have 50 citations in it.
Awesome. I love it. All right. So if you didn't have a chance to write all that down, everything's going to be in the show notes, all of Donnie's links. Donnie, again, has been such a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for teaching me alongside the audience. If you're listening, send this to someone you think it could help. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's help lift humanity up. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone.